What's cracking, everybody? Florges here. We're bringing you some Pokemon TCG Pocket content, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down all of the Stage 2 evolution cards in the game up to this point, and just going to go through all of them with Rare Candy. Why is Rare Candy important? Rare Candy was revealed as a major card in the set of Celestial Guardians, and it allows you, as it comes on the screen here, we'll show it off, it allows you to basically go straight from a basic to a Stage 2 evolution. And why this is important is this is not only going to add speed to your Stage 2 evolution decks, but it's also going to allow you to have more consistency. Not only can you add, the 2 Rare Candies as evolution cards, but you can also use those in addition to maybe a Stage 1. So I see a lot of decks maybe looking to run 2 Rare Candies and 1 of the Stage 1s for consistency, and I think that's been one of the biggest pain points for Stage 2 decks up to this point. So any of these decks are going to see a huge boost in playability, and it's also going to allow these decks to keep up with the basic EX cards like Darkrai and Giratina, and we're also going to be getting some other really exciting stuff. So let's dive in, take a look at all these Stage 2 cards. And we're going to start with Venusaur. Venusaur is going to be one of those Pokemon cards that just does not benefit from Rare Candy, and I'm going to tell you why. Because when you're looking at the playability of Rare Candy, right, you're going to be maybe attaching an energy turn 1 or 2, obviously turn 2, and then you're going to be using the Rare Candy on your next turn to evolve. So ideally you want something that's a Stage 2 that's going to be able to attack with 1 or 2 energy, preferably. I would say that 3 is pushing it a little bit, but if it's got 4 or more, then I would say that it's probably not going to benefit as much from Rare Candy. But that's not to say that you might not want to run it anyway, because it's still better to get the Venusaur or whatever card you're using online regardless. So Venusaur and Venusaur EX are cards that I don't think are going to benefit as much from this, at least not the Genetic Apex version. We're going to be going through each individual Stage 2. I'm going to try to leave some video chapters in the bottom so that y'all can jump to whatever cards you want to hear about. But if you're in for it in the long run, just to get the opinion of all the cards, I got you. Butterfree, while it is a 3 energy card, its ability is outclassed at this point by several other cards in the game. You already have several trainer cards that are going to give you this healing, as well as a Stage 1 heal in Wigglytuff, which also does 20, and it requires less cards in the deck. And you've also got a basic in Shaman that allows you to heal for 10 on all of your Pokemon. So even though the Wigglytuff is only your active spot, so there is a slight difference, but I feel like Butterfree is going to be too many cards to do the thing that it does, whereas you could just run other cards that aren't going to take up as much deck space. Beedrill, however, the base Beedrill, and honestly the EX Beedrill from Shining Revelry, which we'll get to in a little while. Sharp Sting here for 70 damage for 1 energy. You could literally attack for 70 turn 2. Or your turn 4, whatever turn you want to count. Your second turn is essentially what I'm trying to get at here. For 1 energy, you're doing a ton of damage right off the rip, and you're going to be able to overwhelm things very quickly with that huge, I wouldn't say huge, but big enough number, and if you're able to get to it quick enough, Beedrill could do well on its own as a 1 single prize card that does not require a whole lot of setup, which is really nice. Vileplume, on the other hand, however, is a 3 energy card that requires us to essentially, set up for a couple of turns if we use the Rare Candy. So you're going to be, the earliest you're going to be getting this online is going to be your 3rd turn, essentially. And that's, in my opinion, it's going to be a little bit too late to be able to really take advantage of Rare Candy. So hopefully, Vileplume gets cool, because putting things to sleep is a really, really nasty little strategy that people have used. But Victreebell, my goodness, Victreebell. Victreebell has the ability to swap the opponent's active with something on their bench, and it has a nice little chip damage number of 60 on its 2 energy cost Vine Whip, which means that this is a Pokemon that will definitely benefit from Rare Candy. Not only are you going to be able to get the ability online, which is really nice, but you can also get to Vine Whip as early as your 2nd turn, so that's going to set you up for the ability to manipulate your opponent's board to whatever way you need, and it's going to put them in a really awkward spot. So Victreebell is definitely something that I think is going to become relevant. Now Charizard, oh boy, Charizard, unfortunately, because of the fact that not only on this and the EX version, you have to drop 2 energy to use the big attack, or the attack in general in the non-EX version. This is a card that requires a substantial amount of setup, and you're using Moltres and other things that can accelerate energy onto the Charizard. And because of the fact that you have to discard 2 energy when you use the attack, not only do you have to be able to attach more energy per turn or be forced to use Slash for a turn, but you also have to accommodate for the energy by having additional maybe 5-6 energies attached to be able to make up that difference. So it's not something that's going to be able to take as much of an advantage as with Rare Candy to be able to set up quickly. However, Rare Candy is still going to be an excellent card to use just for the sake of consistency and being able to get the Charizard on the board at all. So you could be, again, like I said earlier, you could be running 2 Rare Candies and a Charmeleon, or 2 Charmeleons and a Rare Candy, whichever way you want to go about it, because if you do get good heads rolls on Moltres, you could get Charizard EX online very quickly, but that's a luck-based kind of condition that may or may not be as consistent as you'd like. Blastoise is going to be in the same vein as Charizard in both cases. It still requires quite a bit of energy, and in order to use the abilities that they have to their fullest, you need at least 5 energy, 5 water, or well, 4 water energy and a colorless, which is essentially just 5 energy in the deck that you're going to run it in. So it's going to require Manaphy setup, Misty setup, you know, different things that are going to get that energy. And so having your Blastoise online by turns 2 or 3, it's not really going to benefit you because you still have to keep it back there to set it up. So this is going to be Blastoise is going to be a better card that's going to be suited for a deck that allows you to have that setup. Still running Manaphy, I think, is going to be the key here. But again, we could be running Rare Candy just for consistency's sake. With Poliwrath, counter attack allows you to hit back for 20 damage. Essentially, it's just like Dredagon and having a Rocky Helmet equipped. So Mega Punch requiring 3 energies to use. It's one of those good stallers, but at the same time, like, why run Poliwrath when you could just run Dredagon, right? Unless it fits better in your deck, there's not really a whole lot of reasons for us to run Poliwrath, even with the ability, because it's just been kind of power crept by quite a few things. Omastar. Now, here's the really sick thing about Rare Candy is if the regular TCG rules apply, you can apply that Rare Candy to a fossil and immediately slap on a stage 2. So Omastar, Rampardos, other, Bastiodon, those fossil Pokemon are going to benefit greatly from just having that ability to go straight to the stage 2, and the abilities that some of these fossils have. I know you guys are familiar with Rampardos. It's going to be crazy. You can get Rampardos online as early as turn 2 and just start swinging for 150 like no one's business. It's insane. Ancient Whirlpool here on Omastar means that the opponent's defending Pokemon can't attack. So you basically force them to either miss a turn of attacking or to swap out if they're trying to do damage, which is interesting. I don't think it's going to be a top meta deck, but again, everything that's a stage 2 here is going to have better play with Rare Candy. Now, Greninja is a perfect example of a card that's going to benefit from Rare Candy, and there's 2 reasons for this. Water Shuriken does 20 damage without any energy. You don't need energy to play Greninja. You can if you want to. 60 damage from Mist Slash for 2 energy is solid, but you don't need this energy in order to do the 20 damage with Water Shuriken. And so you can slap Greninja in a deck that's doing passive damage and allow it to just get evolved instead of having to wait for the Froakie and Frogadiers. So very, very solid card. We'll see more play with Rare Candy for sure. Eelektross from Genetic Apex is it's kind of like on the very edge of could be used, but probably won't be, because Paralysis is something that you can apply with other cards for less energy, and Thunderfang is nice damage, but I don't think it's going to be enough to sway anything in particularly in favor of Eelektross here. Alakazam. Okay. So the Psychic ability, and this is going to be on just about every card that runs it, is going to do 30 additional damage for each energy attached to the opponent's active, in addition to the 60 that it already does. So getting a card like this online with energy attached is going to be very nice, especially if you pair it with something like Lunala EX, which is going to be able to, again, you evolve it. Its ability says you can move your energy from your bench to your active, I believe, if I read it correctly. And that means that you can get Psychic Pokemon online quicker because of that, as long as you have, like, let's say you run Lunala Giratina EX, and then you're gonna have Alakazam, for example. You can put the Giratina down there to generate some energy passively, and then just move it up to Alakazam and just start destroying things. Now, early game, though, there's not a lot of energy in play unless the opponent gets, like, a Misty Roll, so this is usually a deck or a type of card that requires the right time to come in and set up anyway, so it's not like it's gonna come out swinging early game, but it definitely has promise. A lot of people have been talking about Gengar, and I think they're right. Gengar is going to be much more common going forward. Using both the EX and the regular, 1 energy for this card, and it allows you to lock your opponents out from all supporters from their hand, which is, at least as far as I'm aware, the only place that you can currently play them from. So turn 1 Gengar is going to be insane. Oh, turn 2 Gengar is going to be insane, I think. In the EX version, it does require it to be in the active spot, but it is an ability. However, its energy cost being 3, it's going to be a little bit harder to run with the rare candy sort of style of deck because you need that 3 energy. However, you are able to immediately evolve it in your active and lock the opponent out of their supporters. You just have to make sure that you can get that energy in play to be able to hit the opponent for that damage. So either game. Guardy, you thought this thing was good before. Wait till it gets online a turn sooner and is immediately accelerating energy. This is exactly the type of Pokemon that, you know, Gengar needs. That all the psychic types that have a 3 energy cost, you can now run them with the rare candies and just have Gardevoir shoot energy up to the active. I feel like Gardevoir is going to be able to just come online sooner, and that by itself, getting that extra energy is going to be massive for decks like wanting to run something like Mewtwo EX and just start firing off those hard-hitting moves. Machamp is not going to see any extra play. There's really no reason for it. I don't think there's anything that really gives it more play. You know, you still need 3 energy. There's no abilities involved. It's not a card that I think is going to benefit as much. And I say that knowing that all of the stage 2s will benefit to some degree, but they're not going to see an increased amount of playability by being played with rare candy. Machamp EX is the exact same way. It's 20 more damage for the same energy, but it's a 2-prizer. I just don't think that Machamp is the play here for a fighting type. There are much better fighting types out there currently that you can use. Golem. This is the wrong Golem. This is the inferior Golem. I want the one that takes less damage. So this Golem, not so good. The other one, however, might actually be good, but the thing is that in order to get that attack online, you need 4 energy, and it's going to be the same on both. We'll talk about it when we get to it. Kabutops got smaller, but Leech Life. This is, again, a perfect example of a card that is going to benefit greatly just from existing off of those rare candies. You're immediately able to go for a single energy Leech Life, and you could put this with, for example, you could put it with Lucario's in the back to be doing extra fighting damage to your opponent and be able to heal all the damage that you just did. Niddoking, my beloved, will be more consistent. However, not only that, you have to have benched Nidoking. So this particular deck, I think, has much more consistency. However, you still have to fully evolve into Nidokings in order to be able to use Nidokeen's ability to the fullest. So it's going to be a bit more setup, but this as a deck, the Nidokeen deck as a deck gets a massive boost in consistency by just adding 2 rare candies and having perhaps 1 of each, or maybe since you would want to have 2 of the Nidokings in the back, maybe you run 2 of the Nidorinos, 1 of the Nidorina. Anyway. Dragonite. I want it to be good. I love Dragonite. I don't get to use it very often because we have not, I haven't had enough time to play around with it to get to the point where I can use it, but I love the concept of this card, but because it requires 4 energies, again, we're getting consistency out of rare candy, but it's not accelerating the setup at all because you still have to manually attach the water and electric energy to it in some form or fashion. Pidgeot, 2 energy for the wing attack. You basically get to tell them, you're going to use a Sabrina. You get to push out their active into the bench, but they get to choose what they're going to bring in. So it's not as effective as Victreebell is, but you're still getting this online quickly. It's a disruption card that allows you to really mess with the opponent's board in some ways. And cards like this are going to be a great thing to have with Rare Candy. Now we're going to take a look at the cards from Mythical Island. Serperior. If you get this thing online, the grass decks immediately go nuts, right? Like, Celebi just got more consistent, because if you get Serperior with the doubled up on energy, each of the grass energies attached counts as 2, while Serperior is on the board. The effect does not stack, so if you have 2, it only counts as 2 still, not 4. But being able to get to Solar Beam, I mean, essentially when Serperior is on the board, all the energy costs for everything as far as attacks are half. So you need only 2 for Solar Beam. You only need, you know, 1 technically for Celebi, right? So Serperior is going to be a massive, massive benefactor of Rare Candy. Florges, I mean, it's solid. It's 2 energy, but because it doesn't have an ability, basically you're just using it for its healing. And so I feel like, again, it's like, do you want to run the Florges and get the healing, which is fine. 80 damage is very respectable, and being able to heal 20 off of everything, but it's only got 120 HP. It gets one shot by a lot of EX cards in the meta at the moment, and especially ones that are coming to the meta. And being able to heal that 20 is nice, but there, like I said, there's other things that can do it better. So now this is where the Golem that I'm talking about, this is the one that I would like to see, right? So like, if you can just get to Golem fast enough and set it up with those energy. When I was playing this deck, my biggest issue was always, where's my Golem? Where's my Graveler? How do I get to this? Like, that's the biggest issue. Attaching energy, you just need to stall long enough to get Guard Press online, and then you're able to just start hitting for 120, take 30 damage less from attacks. It's a very, very strong card, but requires quite a bit of setup. So being able to bypass Graveler and get straight to Golem and start using Brock on the Golem, because if I'm not mistaken, you can't use Brock until it becomes a Golem. So that particular caveat to Brock is going to really make Golem a lot more consistent. So I think that this version of Golem could see a lot more play in the future, especially if fighting types become very good anti-meta picks. Scolipede is one of the cards that I love to use. I was one of the early adapters of the Koga Weezing line deck when Genetic Apex and its events were coming out early on in the game, so I was very, very beholden to using dark types, especially things like Scolipede, Weezing, Arbok, right? Those Pokemon. But Scolipede, it's only 2 energy and immediately gets to go for Venoshock on 2 energy, which you're going to have 2 energy most likely by the time you evolve it anyway. And its pre-evolution is able to poison things. So I'm not sure if it's the middle or the first stage evolution, but regardless, if you can poison something and get this out turn 2, this is going to be hitting for 120 dark damage right off the rip, and having 140 HP is a very respectable number as well. Pidgeot EX. This thing is actually going to be interesting. It has 170 HP. I think that it's going to be a very interesting thing, but the problem is that it's a very conditional attack in that your opponent has to have a stacked bench for you to get the most out of this card. And so for that reason, I think that it's going to be situational at best. If you see some decks that are out there that really want to load up their bench, maybe Pidgeot EX could come back into its relevance. It was a very strong anti-meta card against some decks that really did like to load up on their bench back in the Mythical Island events. So could see some play, but again, it's hard to say until we see what the meta looks like. And now we get to Space Time Smackdowns cards. Bellossom, 80 damage for 2 leaf energy, grass energy. It's fine, but again, it's going to be one of those things that, like, why run this when you could probably run something like Serperior that gives you a benefit for having it on the field and also does nearly the same damage. So probably not something that you're going to want to run unless there's some card out there that really synergizes well with Bellossom that I'm not aware of yet. But someday, maybe. Torterra. I wish they would give us Torterra EX, man. Empoleon EX and Torterra EX, they missed. 4 energy for Frenzy Plant. Again, this is something that you're going to want to use a Serperior in order to get it online quicker. But 4 retreat cost, and you can't use Frenzy Plant during the next turn. Now, you can bypass that with some shenanigans where you retreat and then retreat back. You retreat, and then somehow you're able to get your Torterra back in the active. You can use it a second time. There are some shenanigans you can do with this card, but very, very costly card to use. And unless you're running it with Serperior, I just can't see a real tangible benefit to wanting to use it. Infernape EX. This is going to be sick. Okay. You discard all fire energy from this Pokemon by using Flare Blitz. However, 2 energy, and if you can hit for 140 on your second turn, that is just an immense amount of damage that cannot be understated, and it's very quick to set back up and has no retreat cost at all. So you could simply just attack, retreat, load it back up, and then put it back in the active maybe with something else, and then you just get to keep hitting for Flare Blitz. It's just, this card could be very strong, and this got more consistency. A card like this will be very good. Mamoswine! The ability is nice. The energy cost is not. This is a gets a benefit from the ability existing, but does not get to do anything with its attacks until it gets 4 energy. And this is going to require, there's no Serperior for water types that I'm aware of, at least not yet. So you're going to need something like Manaphy, or you're going to need something like Misty to set this up. And it's just going to be very difficult to get online, but it's conditioned of only being able to take less damage from fire or water type Pokemon. It's just, it's too conditional for me to want to make a good meta deck out of it, but I'm sure that it could work in some form or fashion. Empoleon, able to do 30 damage to one of your opponent's benched, as well as doing 80 damage with Aqua Jet. This is actually a very decent looking card. Able to get it into its attacking, you know, to be able to attack with it very quickly with 3 energy. Very quickly. Decently quickly, I should say. It's like right at that upper cusp of how much energy we want something to need for it to be able to benefit from rare candy. But being able to do that much damage and also snipe something off the bench, that's a Magikarp that just disappears. That's, you know, that's 30 damage that adds up if the opponent can't get rid of the Empoleon. But having 150 HP also allows it to survive a lot of attacks from most of the current meta EXs that we expect to see. Magnezone, man, this is one of the cards that you do not want to run rare candy. And the reason why is because Genetic Apex Magneton, as you are all sure are astutely aware, is able to generate electric energy for itself. So by taking away that middle evolution, you basically have to run Magnezone in such a way that you're not relying on the passive energy generation of the Magneton, and you're just relying on being able to load up Magnezone and hit it. So the strategy will change if you include rare candy into Magnezone, and you kind of have to run it in an electric deck instead of being able to just slap it in any old deck at that point, because you need the electric energy in order to attack with Magnezone. It may require 2 colorless, or may not require 2 specific energies, but you have to have an electric energy in order to use the attack. And by discarding your electric energy, if you discard your only electric energy, your Magnezone is going to be just a sitting duck. Doesn't matter how many other energies you have attached to it. So keep that in mind, but Magnezone is probably one of the cards that I would shy away from trying to force rare candies onto. Now, Luxray. This is risky. You have to discard all lightning energy from this Pokemon. Now, if there's a way for you to re-accelerate that energy back onto Luxray, that's fine. But it does 120 damage to any Pokemon of your choosing. So this thing could snipe anything it wants to. If there's, you know, Pokemon that's low on HP, you don't have your Cyrus handy, you can just Volt Bolt something and take care of it. Might be good to get a game win off of that. So this is kind of like a one and done sort of Pokemon. However, it does have a 0 retreat cost, so which, if your opponent's trying to stall with Druddigon, this is a fantastic card to be able to get around the Druddigon, do the damage, put it back in the bench, and then reload those energies up and then come back in and hit it. And you're able to get it to its first attack, you know, quicker, because you're able to use rare candy to get Volt Bolt online a little bit sooner if you can get the energies in play for as well. Togekiss is going to be interesting. You put this with Cynthia. This thing's doing a lot of damage. You hit it for 60 damage the first time. Then afterwards, it's going to do plus 60 the next turn. So you start with 60, and then you're doing 120 damage every turn if you use Overdrive Smash, which is incredible. And it's only 2 energy, so this is a card that will greatly benefit from the speed of rare candy and being able to get this attack online and start hitting for large amounts of damage very quickly. If the opponent can't set up quick enough, they might get overwhelmed by this card. And Cynthia adding even more damage on top of that is just silly. Dusknoir. Now, I love looking at Stage 2 Pokemon with abilities when I'm thinking about rare candy. Rare Candy will allow you to get Dusknoir online by the second turn, and if there's any damage on a Pokemon, you can choose that, move all the damage from that Pokemon and put it onto Dusknoir, and it's got 130 HP, so it's going to be able to move quite a good amount of damage, and then it has a 70 damage attack and Devour Soul, which does require 3 energy to use. However, it's still, the ability is going to be very nice for you to be able to keep the thing that you're trying to use alive in your active or somewhere else on your bench maybe. Rhyperior, 150 damage for 4 energy. This is not a card that's going to be happy to run Rare Candy for the sake of getting online quicker. This Pokemon will still require some setup, and for that reason, I'm deeming it not really caring about Rare Candy. Rampardos is one of the most talked about cards because you're going to be able to smash things with its head for 130 damage immediately after it's played. Again, those fossils are going to be able to just come straight out swinging, and it's 1 energy. You're immediately getting Rampardos with only needing to be able to go for just Rare Candy, Rampardos, 1 energy, smack him for 130. That's game winning. This deck is going to be silly in very short order with Rare Candy coming out. Bastiodon, with its Guarded Grill ability on a heads coin flip, takes 100 less damage from any attack. That is like, if you get that call correct on the heads, it's just game winning. The ability to just not take 100 damage is crazy. And having 160 HP, this thing has already got a massive HP pool. The only difference that I don't, between this and Rampardos, obviously the energy cost here, as far as getting them online quick enough. Headbang does 80 damage, but you have to get to the 3 energies. So this could certainly be a decent, like, Dialga setup card, right? Use Dialga to set up, or use some other way to accelerate that steel energy to it, and then just throw it in the active after you get the rare candies out, and you're going to be able to start putting out a nice fat wall while you set something else up if you need to. Gallade EX, however, 2 energized blade. It doesn't require more energy to do a thing. Gallade EX is definitely going to see a rise in consistency in play with the rare candy, because getting 2 energy onto Gallade and you're able to immediately start hitting for 70 plus 20 for all other energies attached is going to be a very difficult setup to get over. With 170 HP, there's really nothing that's going to one-shot Gallade either. Now, base Garchomp, very interesting. I love that it has an ability that allows you to just draw an extra card if you discard a card from your hand. It's a hand cycle ability. But the fact that you need water and fighting energy, it's going to be very difficult to get this card going as early as you want it to, just because of those 2 energies. You basically have to have water, fighting energy immediately back to back on the second turn in order to get this card going. But if you don't have the energy, it's still nice to be able to use that ability to just thin the deck a little bit to be able to get to the cards that you need. So Garchomp as a draw engine is definitely viable if you can get a deck around it that allows it to also attack, because 100 damage off a Dragon Claw is not an insignificant number 1 at all. Porygon-Z. This card eluded me the entire time this set was out. I don't even think I have a second one yet to play this deck. But Buggy Beam, getting it to 3 colorless energy. You can use almost any type of energy acceleration that you like. There's the ability to use, you know, something like a Giratina, Porygon-Z, that you could accelerate the colorless energy or the psychic energy from the Giratina, maybe using Dawn or the Lunala EX. And Buggy Beam allows you to just completely just frazzle the opponent's energy and change it to a random type. So it might completely disrupt their play, or you might give them the exact energy that they need. But either way, I think that this could be an interesting deck using different ways to accelerate energy. If you get Porygon-Z online quickly, it's a huge disruption to the opponent's play. Staraptor. During your opponent's next turn, the opponent's defending Pokemon cannot retreat, meaning that it's stuck. It's like Arbok. It can't go anywhere, which is interesting to say the least. 140 HP is decent, but it takes 3 energy, so you're going to require at least an extra turn of setup to be able to use Staraptor, so you may as well run the Staravias anyway. And now we talk about Triumphant Light, the Arceus set. Gengar, the other Gengar. This is not going to be the Gengar that I would be running. However, if you're going for a sleep strat, 2 energy for 70 damage is as solid as you can get. It also put the opponent's Pokemon asleep. They fail that coin toss for checkup at the next turn, and then you're just sitting there doing another 70 damage. It's going to add it very quickly, and it's a very quick Pokemon to get online, which is kind of nice to have for something like this. Tyranitar. There are some cards in the Arceus Power Link or Link Pool, whatever you want to call it, that will benefit. However, I don't think Tyranitar is one of those cards. It's nice to be able to hit for 160 damage, and getting Tyranitar online quickly is nice, but you need an energy acceleration in addition to the evolution, and I don't think that that's going to be something that you can reliably get. So Tyranitar is probably going to be better suited for a deck that allows it to sit in back and set up and then come in and just crush things afterwards. Garchomp EX, on the other hand, with 1 energy, as soon as you play this thing into with the rare candy, you can immediately start sniping things for 50 damage off the opponent's bench or active, and then you have the 100 damage Dragon Claw as you can build it up. So this is a very, very interesting card that I'm actually looking forward to trying with the rare candies when it comes out, because being able to just instantly hit anything I want for 50 damage on the board and build up to an extra 100 damage when I need it is going to be really, really, really good. Crobat, also definitely going to be something that benefits. Darkness decks with Arceus, Crobat is going to be silly. Immediately when you play it, you can just do 30 damage to the opponent's active, and then you can have Darkness Fang the same turn with a Dark Energy to be able to do another 50. So that's 80 damage from Crobat as soon as it hits the board, as long as you have an Arceus card in play. Magnezone with Resilience Link. This thing is basically saying, I'm going to take less damage with Arceus in play. Power Beam is 80 damage. It's solid. It's a nice tanky ability here, which is interesting for sure, to say the least. But the problem that I have with Magnezone is, again, that 3 energy for 80 damage. It doesn't feel like it's going to be worth using over something like Bastiodon, for example. So this version of Staraptor has Brave Bird, 130 damage, but it's hitting itself for 20 damage. Honestly, at this point, just run Solgaleo EX. Really. It does the same thing as Staraptor, but I feel like it does everything better. Now as we get to the cards from Shining Revelry, Beedrill EX, 2 energy, Crushing Spear. You are discarding opponent's energy from them in the active spot as early as your second turn. And that is such a huge disruption, basically, because they can only attach 1 energy per turn. They attach it, you take it off. They attach it, you take it off. So unless they have additional energy acceleration, Beedrill is a huge disruption to the opponent's board early game if you can get it online. Meowscarada is one of the best, if not the best, anti-meta cards in one of my favorite decks, because it's also her favorite Pokemon, which just makes it a lot more fun to use knowing that that's the case. Fighting Claw is doing 130 damage to any opposing Pokemon EX, which we may or may not see as commonly now because of these because of the upsurge in stage 2 evolutions, which we might see a lot more single prize decks coming out of the woodwork here. But Meowscarada is top tier when it comes to being able to beat down EX cards, because that damage is going to go so far hard and so quick. And being able to go, for example, a first turn search with Sprigatito, get the Meowscarada in hand, you have the rare candy already, you're immediately just second turn just hitting with Meowscarada for 130 damage if the opponent's got an EX in the active, which is just an absolutely dangerous thing to be able to do. Charizard EX from Shining Revelry is one of the cards I think is going to be a very interesting now in this meta, because before, why use this when we could just use the first Charizard that has a 200 damage attack, right? But wait, hear me out. You immediately put Charizard EX on the board. You use Stoke. You have 4 energy at minimum attached to Charizard, and next turn you're just pumping out Steam Artillery out of that, and that's on your as early as your 3rd turn potentially. That's a lot of damage to be putting out. 180 HP on a Charizard is a nice HP pool. So Charizard, I think, is going to be an interesting card here with rare candy, at least the one from Shining Revelry. Palmot reminds me of Poliwrath, and for that reason, I'm out. Poliwrath and this have the same ability, counterattack, where if they're hitting the active, they do 20 damage to the opponent's attacking Pokemon. Again, we could just run Druddigon and do the exact same thing. But the thing is that the Palmot has 140 HP and does 70 damage on 2 energy Electric Punch. So it has the ability to hit back, unlike Druddigon, which you would need several different types of energy. And also the HP pool, I think, is only 100 on Druddigon, if I'm not mistaken. So it does require a little bit of additional setup. But Palmot is not a bad card by any means. It's just outclassed in a couple of ways. But at that point, why not flex the ones that you hopefully were able to get from the promo event? Alakazam, the new Alakazam could be interesting. It does 80 damage for 2 energy, but also does 20 damage to anything on the bench on your opponent's side that has energy attached. So quick to get it online, and ability to put a lot of pressure on anything in the back that is trying to set up, and doing 80 damage over the course of 1 or 2 turns. You're probably going to be able to take out the opponent's active and be able to force out whatever's already taken some damage, and you might even be able to KO it after that extra 20 or 40 or however much damage you're able to put onto it. Machamp, at a glance, looks okay. However, because of the fact that it's kind of like Blastoise and that you have to have at least 2 extra fighting energy attached to make it do more damage to get the most out of this card, you can get it online quickly, but you're not going to be giving the most out of the card until you've had an extra couple of turns to set up. So while it could be helped by rare candy, it's not something that you're going to get the full benefits of until it's fully set up with 4 energy attached. That being said, being able to come out immediately for 2 energy for 70 damage and ramp up after a couple of turns is definitely not to be understated here. Tinkaton EX is kind of middle of the road for me. It doesn't have an ability, and it's a coin flip that does 160 damage if you get the heads. So 3 energy for 160 potential damage is definitely something that is not small. Like that will one-shot a lot of cards. That just destroys a lot of cards. However, that's the thing, right? You have to get that heads roll, so for that, it's just a coin flip, and that can be the same can be said for almost any of these coin flip cards, whether or not they're good or not, right? Now, the last 2 cards we're going to talk about before we wrap up here is going to be Solgaleo EX and Lunala EX. You look at Solgaleo EX, it's got 180 HP. It's going to be able to switch the active Pokemon with this Pokemon on your bench and immediately come out and swing for 120. This goes for 2 energy and does 10 damage to itself, but 10 damage to itself with 180 HP, and we have many ways to heal Pokemon in this game now. So this feels like it's just a really consistent, strong card. You're going to get it out very quickly with the, it's the perfect rare candy recipient, essentially. It is going to be able to get online quickly, has the ability to get itself in and out as needed, and the 10 damage to itself for 120 damage outgoing. That's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And finally, Lunala EX, one we've talked about a couple of times here. Once during your turn, you can move all psychic energy from one of your bench psychic Pokemon to your active Pokemon. You could have a Giratina setting up in the back, and if you want to come out with Lunala, just slap him with 100 damage. It doesn't, like, if you have a Giratina with even 1 energy, by the time Lunala's online, you've probably got 3 energy to be able to start swinging for 100 damage right off the rip. And you can't see it, but it has 180 HP. Let's see if I can move it around here. 180 HP, and that is going to be a massive pool of energy to chew or HP to chew through for a lot of Pokemon. It needs at least 2 hits, even on the heavy swingers that's not Charizard. And this is a very good setup card that you can get out quickly with rare candy, and you can move all that psychic energy from something that's got it, Giratina for example, up to something in the active. It does all have to be psychic, but this card could be very interesting in combo decks. So let me know in the comments what you think about this new set and all the new cards that are going to be affected by rare candy. I'm excited to hear what y'all think, and also we're going to be doing a lot more on this channel, so please consider hitting a like and subscribe and turn on those notifications if you want to be here when we drop with new pack openings and being able to get the trying out the new decks, as well as just having a good time. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Thank you as always. Bye-bye.